My garden. It's not your typical perfectly manicured suburban patch of green. It's me. A little bit chaotic, a little bit overgrown, but full of personality. And the heart and soul of my garden? My gnomes. Yeah, I know, gnomes. Some people think they're tacky, but I love them. They're not just decorations, they're practically family. Each one has its own story, its own quirks. There's Bartholomew, the fisherman, perpetually casting his line into the, admittedly rather small, koi pond. There's Gertrude, the gnome gardener, always tending to her tiny patch of slightly overgrown herbs. And there's Winston, the gnome philosopher, perpetually pondering the mysteries of the universe while sitting on a miniature mushroom. These guys are more than just lawn ornaments. They're like little reminders of good times. Bartholomew was a gift from my grandpa, who loved fishing more than anything. Gertrude was a present from my best friend, who has the greenest thumb I've ever seen. And Winston? Winston was a flea market find, a little bit chipped and faded, but full of gnome wisdom, I guess. My garden is their kingdom. They've got their little gnome village set up under the shade of the old apple tree. They've got their own miniature furniture, their own tiny tools, even their own little gnome-sized bird bath. It's whimsical, it's quirky, it's mine, and it's perfect. At least it was, until the HOA decided to stick their noses where they didn't belong. Again. These guys, I swear, they're like some kind of lawn Gestapo, obsessed with uniformity to the point of absurdity. Their ideal lawn? A perfectly manicured, sterile, decoration-free expanse of identical green. Think golf course, but boring. No flowers, no statues, definitely no gnomes, just grass. And not even interesting grass. Just plain, boring, regulation-approved grass. They're all about curb appeal and property values, which, in their minds, translates to everything must look exactly the same so that rich people will want to move here and make us all slightly less poor. It's a whole thing. They've got rules about everything, from the height of your hedges to the color of your mailbox. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a rule about the acceptable shade of green for your lawn, probably something like Pantone 342C only. They've been a pain in the butt for years, targeting anyone who dares to deviate from their vision of suburban perfection. Mrs. Higgins got a nasty letter about her excessively colorful petunias. Mr. Johnson was threatened with fines for unauthorized bird feeders. They even went after the poor kid who had a lemonade stand in his front yard because it detracted from the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood. Seriously? A lemonade stand? Uptight, controlling, deeply, deeply humorless. They're the kind of people who would probably write you up for having a dandelion in your yard, or for smiling too much, or for breathing air that they deem too cheerful. They're the fun police, the beige brigade, the lawn Nazis, and they were coming for my gnomes. I just knew it. Yep, the inevitable happened. The HOA's reign of terror extended to my little gnome village. It arrived in the mail, of course. The dreaded letter. Crisp white envelope. Official-looking font. The kind of thing that makes your blood pressure spike just by looking at it. I knew what it was before I even opened it. The gnome eviction notice. I sighed, grabbed the letter, and went inside. I poured myself a stiff drink. It was only 10 a.m., but hey, dealing with the HOA is stressful, and braced myself. I opened the letter, and there it was, in all its bureaucratic glory. Dear Mr. Jackson, it began, it has come to the attention of the Willow Creek Estates Architectural Harmony Committee. Yes, they actually have a committee for that. That your garden decorations are in violation of Section 3, subsection C, Paragraph 7 of the Willow Creek Estates Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, CC and Rs. I kept reading, and it got worse. Specifically, the letter continued, the presence of multiple garden gnomes is deemed to be unsightly. Unsightly? Seriously, that's their official reason. Unsightly. It's so vague, so subjective, so utterly ridiculous, it's like they just pulled a word out of a hat. We don't like them, therefore they are unsightly. That's basically what it boils down to. The letter went on to say that my gnomes, detract from the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood, and fail to conform to the established standards of lawn decorum. Lawn decorum? Is that even a thing? It sounds like something out of a Jane Austen novel. And then, the kicker. Failure to remove these unauthorized decorations within 7 days will result in a fine of $100 per gnome per day. $100? Per gnome? Per day? These guys were serious. They weren't just content with making my life miserable, they wanted to make me bankrupt too. I crumpled up the letter, after taking a picture of it, of course, for posterity and for future Reddit rants, and took another swig of my drink. Unsightly. That's their official reason. Unsightly. It's so absurd, so petty, so infuriating. They weren't just attacking my gnomes, they were attacking my taste, my personality, my right to have a little bit of whimsy in my life. And that I wasn't going to stand for. If they wanted uniform, I'd give them uniform. But it wasn't going to be the kind of uniform they were expecting. Okay, so the gnome eviction notice? Yeah, that stung. I'm not gonna lie. I was genuinely bummed. Those little guys were like family. Seeing them carted off, one by one, into the back of some HOA lackey's truck, it was like watching my heart get ripped out, gnome by gnome. I felt violated, targeted, like my personal style was under attack. Okay, maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but still. For a while, I was just sad. My garden felt empty, sterile, like a piece of me was missing. I wandered around, kicking at stray leaves, feeling sorry for myself. The HOA had won. They'd crushed my gnome rebellion, or so they thought. Then, something snapped. I looked around at my now gnomeless garden, at the perfectly manicured lawns of my neighbors, at the beige houses, the beige mailboxes, the beige everything. And I just snapped. Uniform, huh? I muttered to myself, a slow grin spreading across my face. They want uniform? I'll give them uniform. The idea sparked in my mind, bright and pink and utterly ridiculous. If they wanted uniform, they'd get uniform. But it wasn't going to be their kind of uniform. It wasn't going to be beige and boring and soulless. It was going to be pink and plastic, and utterly, gloriously tacky. Pink flamingos. The image popped into my head, and I knew instantly. It was perfect. A brightly colored, utterly ridiculous counterpoint to the HOA's beige world. A flock of pink plastic birds standing in defiant uniformity. A symbol of rebellion against the tyranny of aesthetic harmony. It was perfect. It was petty. It was exactly the kind of uniformity the HOA would absolutely hate. And that, my friends, was the whole point. The gnome genocide was over. The Flamingo uprising was about to begin. Okay, so, Operation Flamingo was a go. First things first, the birds themselves. I wasn't going to just grab any old flamingos. This had to be iconic, classic, tacky even. I wanted the quintessential pink flamingo, the kind you see in old movies, the kind that screams suburban kitsch. I hit up Amazon, naturally. And there they were, in all their plastic glory. Perfectly pink, perfectly tacky, perfectly perfect. I ordered a small flock, just a few to start. I wasn't going to go full flamingo crazy right away. This was a strategic deployment, a probe, a test to see how long it took the HOA to notice. When the flamingos arrived, I was giddy. They were even better in person. So pink, so plastic, so gloriously ridiculous. I carefully, strategically placed them in my front yard, not all clustered together, mind you. I wanted them to be distributed, like they were casually grazing, enjoying the now gnome-free landscape. 3 by the mailbox, 2 by the koi pond, 1 perched on the empty gnome village mushroom. It was subtle, but it was there, a pop of pink in a sea of beige. I waited. It didn't take long. Predictably, the HOA responded. Within 48 hours, I had another letter. This one was even more passive-aggressive than the gnome eviction notice. It was all about maintaining property values and preserving the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. Blah, blah, blah. Specifically, the letter stated, because they always have to be specific, The presence of unauthorized lawn ornaments, namely the pink flamingos, is in direct violation of Section 4, subsection D, paragraph 11 of the Willow Creek Estates CC and Rs. Unauthorized lawn ornaments? Seriously? They were calling my flamingos ornaments. They're birds. Plastic birds, yes, but birds nonetheless. And aesthetic integrity? Give me a break. The letter went on to threaten fines, of course, because that's their go-to move. Failure to remove these garish and inappropriate decorations within 72 hours will result in a fine of $200 per flamingo per day. $200 per flamingo per day? These guys were escalating, and so was I. The warning shot had been fired, and it just fueled my resolve. They wanted a war? Fine. They wanted pink? They were going to get pink. Lots and lots of pink. The initial flock was just the beginning. The flamingo uprising was about to get a whole lot pinker. Okay, so the HOA sent their little warning about the garish and inappropriate flamingos. $200 per flamingo per day? They were clearly underestimating my dedication to petty revenge. They wanted a flamingo war? They were going to get a flamingo war. The first warning? That meant the initial flock was just a scouting party. I hit up Amazon again, naturally. This time, I wasn't messing around. I ordered a lot more flamingos. Double the amount, to be precise. And then, when the next warning came, because predictably it did, I doubled that number. And then I doubled it again. It became a thing. A pink plastic multiplying thing. My front yard was slowly transforming into a sea of pink. It was glorious. It was ridiculous. It was exactly what the HOA deserved. The process was, well, it was an experience. I started buying the flamingos in bulk. Seriously, I had boxes of pink birds piling up in my garage. I became known at the local shipping store as the Flamingo Guy. They'd just see me walk in with another stack of boxes and shake their heads, chuckling. I got strategic with the placement. I wanted the flamingos to be everywhere. Lurking in the bushes, perched on the roof, even floating in the koi pond. I had to get some inflatable ones for that. It was like a pink flamingo invasion, and then I started adding variety. I got some smaller flamingos, some bigger ones, some doing yoga poses, yes, really, even some custom-made ones. I found a guy on Etsy who made tiny little flamingo sweaters. I kid you not, I bought a bunch. But the best part? The personalized insults. As the flamingo flock grew, I started adding little touches. Some flamingos got tiny HOA name tags with names like Mrs. McMillan and Mr. Peterson, the most vocal HOA board members. Others were posed in, let's just say, humorous ways. A few were mooning the HOA, tastefully, of course. One was even perched on a miniature toilet, reading a copy of the HOA bylaws. It was playful. It was petty. It was perfect. It was a playful but pointed insult directed at the HOA's obsession with control. It was a way of saying, you want uniform? Fine. Here's your uniform. But it wasn't just about revenge. It was about making a statement, about standing up to the Beige Brigade and their ridiculous rules, and about having a little bit of fun in the process. Because honestly, those pink flamingos made me smile every time I looked at them. And that, I think, is worth more than all the aesthetic harmony in the world. Okay, so the flamingo flock was growing. My front yard was basically a sea of pink, and the HOA was losing their collective minds. But the best part? The neighbors. Their reactions were priceless. Initially, there was shock, like genuine jaw-dropping shock. I'd catch people driving by, slowing down, craning their necks to get a better look at the flamingo phenomenon. Their faces were a mixture of confusion, disbelief, and a tiny bit of, was that amusement? Then came the gossip. Oh, the gossip. The flamingo flock became the topic of conversation in Willow Creek Estates. I'd overhear snippets of conversations as I was casually tending to my flamingo flock, aka adding more flamingos. Have you seen Jackson's yard? Those flamingos are insane. I heard the HOA is furious. It was like a soap opera, but with more pink and less drama. Well, mostly. Some neighbors were horrified, of course. The Karen types, the ones who were already on the HOA's side, were clutching their pearls and muttering about property values and what will the neighbors think. They probably wrote angry letters to the HOA, demanding that they do something about the flamingo infestation. But then there were the others, the ones who were secretly delighted by the whole thing, the ones who were tired of the HOA's rules and regulations, the ones who longed for a little bit of, well, fun in their lives. They'd give me a thumbs up when they drove by or leave anonymous notes on my door, praising my bold artistic statement. One neighbor even left me a 6-pack of beer and a bag of flamingo-shaped marshmallows. It was awesome. The flamingo flock became a symbol of rebellion against the HOA's tyranny, a symbol of just not taking things too seriously. It was a reminder that life is too short to worry about perfectly manicured lawns and aesthetic harmony. It was a reminder that sometimes a little bit of pink is exactly what you need to brighten your day. And the best part? Even the neighbors who were initially shocked started to come around. They realized that the flamingos weren't hurting anyone. They were just there, being pink, being ridiculous, being flamingos. And honestly, they were kind of growing on everyone. Even the grumpiest old guy on the street was seen chuckling as he walked by my yard. It was like the flamingos had a magical power, a way of disarming even the most hardened HOA sympathizers. It was brilliant. Okay, so the flamingo flock was thriving, the neighbors were amused, mostly, and the HOA? They were losing their collective minds. They were apoplectic, furious, incensed. Pick your adjective, they were feeling it. And Mrs. McMillan? Oh, she was on a whole other level of rage. I swear I could practically see steam coming out of her ears. They sent another letter, of course. This one wasn't just a warning. This was a demand. The flamingos had to go, immediately, or else. And the or else involved fines, legal action, and probably some kind of eternal damnation in a beige-themed hell. The presence of these garish avian monstrosities, the letter shrieked. Yes, it actually used the phrase avian monstrosities. Is a clear and blatant violation of Section 4, subsection D, paragraph 11 of the Willow Creek Estates CC&Rs. They even highlighted the section in bright yellow, as if I hadn't already memorized it by heart. They threatened to fine me, of course, a hefty fine, like enough to buy a small flock of real flamingos. And they threatened to take legal action. They were going to sue me, over flamingos, plastic, pink flamingos. The absurdity of it all was almost too much to bear. But I wasn't worried, not one bit, because I had a secret weapon. A weapon forged from legal loopholes and pure, unadulterated sarcasm. My uniform defense. When they showed up for their official flamingo inspection, yes, they actually called it that, I was ready for them. I had my trusty dictionary by my side, a printed copy of the HOA bylaws, with Section 4, subsection D, paragraph 11 highlighted naturally, and a cooler full of flamingo-shaped snacks. I was prepared. Mrs. McMillan, looking like she was about to spontaneously combust, pointed a trembling finger at my flamingo flock. These things, she sputtered, must be removed. They are a blight on the neighborhood. They are not uniform. And that's when I unleashed my secret weapon. Uniform? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You say they're not uniform? Well, Mrs. McMillan, I beg to differ. I pulled out my dictionary and flipped to the definition of uniform. According to Webster's, I read aloud, uniform means being the same or alike, consistent, undeviating. I paused for dramatic effect. And, I continued, gesturing to my sea of pink, my lawn is, in fact, uniformly pink flamingos. They are all the same color, the same species, plastic, and the same avian monstrosity. Mrs. McMillan's face was turning an alarming shade of purple. But that's not what we meant by uniform, she spluttered. Ah, I replied, but your bylaws never actually defined what uniform meant, did they? They simply stated that lawns must be uniform. And, I added with a wink, my lawn is certainly that, uniformly pink and flamingo-filled. The other HOA board members were just staring at me, their mouths agape. They were clearly not prepared for this level of flamingo logic. Mrs. McMillan, however, was not giving up. But it's unsightly, she shrieked. Unsightly? I repeated. That's a matter of opinion, Mrs. McMillan, and as I recall, your bylaws also never defined what sightly or unsightly meant. Perhaps you should have been more specific. I could see the gears turning in her head. She was trying to find some loophole, some way to wriggle out of this, but there was none. I had them. My uniform defense was airtight. Ridiculous, yes, but airtight. The flamingo flock was safe, at least for now. Okay, so my uniform defense had worked. For now. The HOA was defeated, at least on a technicality. But they weren't going down without a fight. They realized their mistake. They'd left a loophole big enough for a flock of flamingos to fly through, and they were determined to fix it. They called a special meeting. A meeting of the minds, as Mrs. McMillan so dramatically put it. The agenda? Changing the rules. Specifically, adding a new section to the CC and Rs. Pink flamingos, plastic or otherwise, are strictly prohibited. They were going to close the flamingo loophole once and for all. They sent out flyers, they put up signs, they even went door to door, trying to rally support for their anti-flamingo crusade. They painted me as the villain, the flamingo-loving anarchist who was single-handedly destroying the aesthetic harmony of Willow Creek Estates. They were pulling out all the stops. But here's the thing about the HOA. They underestimated the power of pink plastic. They underestimated the power of petty revenge. And, most importantly, they underestimated the power of the secret flamingo lovers. The day of the special meeting arrived, and the clubhouse was packed. Everyone in Willow Creek Estates was there. The Karen contingent, clutching their pearls and muttering about property values, were firmly on the HOA's side. But then there were the others. The ones who had secretly fallen in love with the flamingos. The ones who appreciated the humor, the rebellion, the splash of color in their otherwise bland neighborhood. They were the silent majority, the secret flamingo lovers, and they were about to make their voices heard. Mrs. McMillan, looking like she was about to lead a charge against a flock of feathered fiends, took the stage. She gave a passionate speech about the importance of aesthetic harmony, the dangers of unauthorized lawn ornaments, and the threat that pink flamingos posed to the very fabric of Willow Creek Estates. It was all very dramatic. Then it was time to vote, and that's when the magic happened. One by one, the residents cast their ballots. And one by one, the votes went against the rule change. The Karen contingent was stunned. They couldn't believe it. Their carefully crafted plan to ban the flamingos was crumbling before their very eyes. But the secret flamingo lovers had spoken. They'd seen the light, or rather, the pink. They'd realized that life is too short to worry about perfectly manicured lawns and aesthetic harmony. They'd embraced the flamingo, and so the HOA was defeated. Again, their attempt to change the rules had backfired spectacularly. They were stuck with the flamingos, forever. The flamingo flock was safe. They became a permanent fixture of Willow Creek Estates, a symbol of resistance against overbearing HOAs, and a testament to the power of pink plastic. They were a reminder that sometimes the best way to fight conformity is with a little bit of ridiculousness. And me? Well, I became a local legend, the Flamingo King, the pink plastic prophet, the guy who stood up to the HOA and won. And every time I look out at my sea of pink, I smile. It's a small victory, maybe, but it's a victory nonetheless. And honestly, it's a pretty pink victory.